All right, so I just made this video with my brother, or not this video. I just talked about this with my brother. Basically, this is about Power Rangers and what seasons of Power Rangers where the Rangers wear the same outfits every single season. Now, I've stopped watching Power Rangers at Megaforce, at least religiously, so that's where I'm gonna stop. But I'm pretty sure after that, they kind of wear different outfits anyways. But Mighty Morphin, right? Mighty Morphin, they all wore different outfits. They obviously had the same color scheme for each Ranger, but each of them wore different outfits. Zeo was the same, Turbo was the same. In space, they did have their own uniforms, so that was the first season that actually had uniforms. But they, for the few times they did actually go to Earth, they did have civilian clothes and they wore different outfits there. Now we first get to Lost Galaxy. So Lost Galaxy, right? They wear all the same outfits, but it kind of makes sense and also doesn't. So for Damon, Kai, and Kendricks, right, they work for Terra Venture. They're actually workers there. So it makes sense that they wear the same outfits, right? And Mike, when he later joins, right? But Leo and Maya, it makes no sense that they wear the same outfits every single episode. Why? So we know that they're never coming back to Earth. The captain literally mentioned that. Once they leave Earth, they're never coming back. So they should bring clothes, and as my brother pointed out, they definitely have seamstresses who make clothes. So they couldn't give Maya something. She basically wore that bikini that entire season. That made no sense. Lost Galaxy, or Lightspeed Rescue, they had uniforms a vast majority of the time. They did have civilian clothes. I believe they changed outfits. I can't remember. I think they did. But they wore most of the uniforms most of the time. Now, Time Force is the season that they wear the same outfits, but it actually makes sense in universe. And that's going to be only one of the three that actually makes sense in this entire video. Time Force, Wes left his father, so he doesn't have any money. And the other four are from the future. Those clothes were found in the clock tower, right? And the very little money they earn by doing odd jobs, they would use it to buy food or, repair the clock tower. They're not going to use it to buy clothes, right? And they obviously had uniforms from the future. So it makes sense why they only wore the same outfit every single episode, because they couldn't afford to buy any outfits. Wild Force, they had uniforms the entire season, except for a few training episodes. They didn't have any really civilian clothes. For the most part, like 99% of the season, they had uniforms. Again, a few episodes they had civilian clothes, like at least one of them, but they had uniforms. Ninja Storm, they had uniforms, but they also had civilian clothes and they changed outfits. Dino Thunder, they're in school, they're teens, they obviously changed outfits. Some of them were repeats, but that makes sense. SPD, they wore their uniforms the vast majority of the time. They had uniforms. They wore different outfits. But again, for a vast majority of the series, it was in civilian clothes, right? I mean, it was in uniforms. Then they had Mystic Force. Now, they worked at that music shop. They had uniforms, their Ranger uniforms, and then they wore civilian clothes and they wore different outfits. So again, they changed their outfits. Overdrive also changed their outfits. Now, they had uniforms. Mr. Hartford gave them uniforms, but they had civilian clothes, although a vast majority of the series was also wearing their uniforms. Jungle Fury, they had uniforms, and then they also had civilian clothes. Now, RPM is the last season that they wore uniforms, and it made sense. It's a post-apocalyptic world where literally all the department stores are probably destroyed. I'm sure there's maybe some department stores in Corinth, but because the world has limited resources and it's a post-apocalyptic world, clothing would be at the bottom of everybody's priority list. They all wore leather jackets. As my brother pointed out, because most of the cows would probably be dead, most leather would probably be gone anyways. So yeah. So it makes sense for them not to have changed their outfits. Samurai, they wore the same uniforms. They had uniforms, but they also had civilian clothes as well. And lastly, Megaforce wore the same outfits, and it made no sense that people in 2013, people who go to the mall every single year, have no uniforms. And people who wear the same outfits, makes no sense. When the Sixth Ranger, the Silver Ranger, came to Earth, because he's an alien, that one montage in his first appearance, right? He changed more outfits in that one montage than them in the entire season. 2 seasons. What the heck? Are you serious? And then I stopped watching after that. I'm sure Dino Charge and all those seasons after, they wore different outfits, obviously, but Megaforce has no excuse.